Hey guys, alright, we are back with another CGP Grey video, this time the brief history of the royal family, a family I could honestly not really give a fuck about in the modern day. However, I am an Alfred the Great historian, and I do believe that in a way the modern royal family is still descended from Alfred the Great. So, we're gonna go ahead and just dive into this, see what it's about. Probably going to be a lot of information really fast, as that is CGP Grey's style. So, enough talking. Let's go in.
1066.
Oh, the worst year ever. The downfall of the House of Wessex.
Start of the royal family on these fair isles. Well, there were kings in many countries before that, and druids before that, and Pangaea before that, but we have to start somewhere, and a millennia ago is plenty far. If that
Understandable.
leaves out Ethelred the Unready, so it goes. William the Conqueror.
You're leaving out Alfred the Great, the only English monarch to be bestowed the moniker of Great. Now, of course, there was Canute, but he was Scandinavian, so he doesn't count.
Conquered in the Norman conquest, Norman here being code for French. Because it's the olden days, people had lots.
Yes. The Normans, especially by 1066, were just French. They were just northern French people. Because there had been plenty of time where they no longer really had their Nordic roots. They were French. You know, for all intents and purposes, they were French. They were just descended from what, Rollo? Yeah.
Lots of kids, but to keep things simple, this family tree is going to leave out many of them on each branch because not every child matters. So William had 3 kids we care about: William II, Henry I, and Adela. If you've seen the video about royal succession, click here if you haven't, you'll know that formal rules for passing on the crown will get established, but for now it's a free-for-all home team advantage to the eldest son, but never forget bigger army diplomacy. Upon William the Conqueror's death, William II became king. William II didn't marry, and on a bro's day out with Henry, died in a hunting accident that gave Henry I the crown. Henry I
Oh, I didn't know that.
had at least 26 children, of which only 2 were 100% legit. He declared his daughter would rule next after his son died in a shipwreck, and swore his knights to honor Empress Matilda by crossing their hearts, hoping to die, sticking a needle in their eye. But when Henry I died while Matilda was in France, many ignored this, while her cousin Stephen raced to Westminster using faster army diplomacy to get coronated first. Empress Matilda did eventually return and start a decades-long civil war that was pretty much a stalemate because turtling in the 1100s was an effective RTS tactic. While she did rule part of the island, as Matilda never had an official coronation, her monarchical status is disputed. Now, as Stephen's children were either dead, disinterested, or a nun, his crown went to his nephew, Henry II, who had 4 sons: Henry the Young, Richard the Lionheart, King John, and Jeff. Guess who died before his turn? Henry II saw the history thus far of conquering, assassination, maybe usurpation, attritional war, and decided waiting until after the death of the current king before sorting out the next king didn't work. So Henry II changed the system and crowned Henry the Young co-king with him, invoking the rule of 2. 1 is none.
The rule of 2? Sith Lord? Always 2 there are. No more, no less.
2 is 1. If it's important, you need a backup. It was a good plan for stability, helped by the young king's popularity, but unfortunately the apprentice rebelled against the master, rallying his brothers.
What the fuck? Why are these people so willing to fight their dads? Why? You even see it in Anglo-Saxon history too, with Alfred's, not eldest brother, because Alfred's most eldest brother ended up dying before he could become king, before Alfred's father died, Ethelwulf. But Alfred's second oldest brother, when Alfred and Papa Ethelwulf were off in Rome, the eldest brother and the third eldest brother, they were co-kings. They had split the kingdom while Papa Ethelwulf went to Rome. Ethelwulf did that as a precaution. He was like, here, one of you rule this while I'm away, right? And he didn't think, and he thought when he came back, he would just be king of both once again, once he got back. The eldest was like, no, I'm going to keep my throne. I'm going to keep ruling Wessex. But the third brother, he was like, yeah, sure. Here, Ethelwulf, had the throne back for a couple years until you die. The throne of, Kent and mainly Kent. Yeah. Why the fuck do they keep fighting their dads?
which resulted in another civil war of disputed monarchs, during which Henry the Young died of dysentery, Henry the Elder died of fever, and Richard I took the crown. After Richard came John and 4 eldest son successions in a row. John to Henry III, insert Magna Carta here, to Edward I, Longshanks to Edward II to Edward III. Actually, Ed II was overthrown by Isabel of France, aka the She-Wolf of France, aka his wife. After deposing her husband, she acted as regent for their son. Every one of these arrows glosses over a bit of complexity.
Yeah.
Edward III had 5 sons, Edward the Black Prince, Lionel, John, Edmund,
Oh, rest in peace, the Black Prince.
and Thomas, none of which would wear the crown. When Edward III died, his throne would have gone to the Black Prince, but he was dead at the time, so the crown went to his boringly named son Richard, now the second. There's a bunch of drama llama stuff around Richard II, which your English teacher might force you to read about, but spoiler alert, history's ending is always the same: bigger army diplomacy. This time from Henry IV, who gets the crown, and Richard II gets starvation and captivity. Another Henry before we get to the War of the Roses,
Yay!
a war that strikes terror and boredom in the minds of students of history the nation over, who have to deal with this family tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simplified to explain why everyone was angry. But the shortest version ever is Edward III's great-great-grandsons duked it out, even though one of them was dead for part of the fight, but we can't get into that now, so Henry VI to Edward IV to Henry VI to Edward IV, the end. Edward IV, on his death
Yes. Sounds about right.
bed, left his crown to his son, but being 12, he needed protection, so Richard, his bestest uncle in the world, promised to take super good care of him. Edward V then promptly disappeared under suspicious circumstances that left Richard to become Richard III.
I just realized how quickly we glossed over Henry V. Oh my god. You talk a lot about... Oh, wow.
But he didn't stay king for long, because Edward III's great-great-great-great-grandson Henry VII took the crown, put a ring on Elizabeth of York to lock down that royal legitimacy, and then sired Henry VIII, splitter of churches and ladies. Henry VIII thought it was high time to formalize the rules of inheritance, so he wrote them out in his will, basically saying oldest boys first, girls only if there aren't any boys. And Parliament approved the rules, which should have made everything neat and tidy, but we're about to enter the really messy time. Because Henry's
Glorious
son lived
Revolution.
just long enough to
Kinda.
screw it up,
For a little
inheriting the throne at 9. There was, of course, a scheming protectorate running things, yet he still declared at 15 that his father's rules were dumb and his sisters were dumb, and that his first cousin, once removed, Lady Jane Grey, should be the next monarch instead. Then he died, and Lady Jane Grey became queen at sweet 16. Sort of, in a disputed status way, for 9 days, until beheaded by Mary, the first really, truly, officially, nobody doubts it queen. Mary didn't have any kids and passed the crown to Elizabeth I, who became the second queen in a row to also not have children. But no problem, because Lady Jane Grey was next in right. Now this is the point at which we acknowledge Scotland exists. They'd been doing their own royal thing, which for our purposes joins the English branch, where Edward III's great-granddaughter married into it in the 1400s, and then goes James, 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 Mary Queen of Scots, James, bringing us back to the 1600s. Henry VIII's sister, importantly, also married into this line of the family, giving it English legitimacy points in the eyes of the English Parliament, which asked...
I'm getting confused. I'm trying to follow, so that's why I'm not talking much, but I'm just getting confused.
to borrow Scotland's James, making him king of 2 countries, with 2 numbers in his name depending on where you're counting from. James had a son, Charles I, and you might think this unification of the monarchs means the very messy time is over. But no. Because Cromwell.
Yeah.
Cromwell didn't like
Glorious
kings
Revolution.
and beheaded Charles I, declaring no royals no longer, making himself the Lord Protector, which was in no way like a king, even though he was in charge and it was a hereditary office passed to his son. But the Cromwells didn't laugh.
Wait, it was Oh yeah, it was hereditary. I don't really learn much about the Glorious Revolution. I think I've literally... In college, I think I've spent 1 class on the Glorious Revolution, and we spent maybe less than a week of time on it. So yeah, you don't really learn much about Glorious Revolution here.
Mainly because his son was a fancy country squire who didn't follow Rule 0. Keep the army happy, giving Charles's son, Charles II, the ability to re-establish the monarchy. Charles II had lots of children, all of which were illegitimate, leaving his brother, James II, next in line. But James II was Catholic, and ever since Henry split the church, Catholics had terrible approval ratings. But conveniently, he had nice Protestant daughters, one married to a Dutch prince, who by the nature of these things was the grandson of Charles I. Bonus English legitimacy points, plus who doesn't like the Dutch? With James
Yeah, the English do like the Dutch.
Unpopular and William
or at least
and Mary
back then
so popular, the army and nobles pretty much invited the royal couple to invade, and James too fled. William and Mary ruled as co-monarchs, but without children, the crown went to Queen Anne, who also didn't produce any heirs, though not from lack of effort. She was pregnant 17 times.
How the fuck did she live?
Again, finding themselves with a no royals, no longer situation, Parliament decided it was
like even today, getting pregnant that many times and not producing, none of them living. That puts a toll on the body. Immense toll. Especially in the modern day. With modern medicine, the chances I don't think are good. What? That's immense luck. Well, not lucky because you don't have an heir to give the throne to, but still.
Was really truly seriously the time to sort out the rules of inheritance, to avoid pretenders from every branch of this messy tree fighting over the crown. Parliament did a royal reboot to clear the cruft, defining Sophia of Hanover, the granddaughter of James dual numbers, to be the new starting point for all claims to the crown. These rules finally stuck, thus ending the very messy time. George I, son of Sophia, was the first king under the new rules, then his son George II to George III, and even though he lost America and his mind, never fear, the rules are here, so the crown continued to calmly descend the family tree, going to George IV, who didn't have any surviving children, to William IV, who had 10 children, all illegitimate. Then passing through his dead younger brother to Queen Victoria, who started her reign in 1837 and made it to just over the finishing line of the 20th century, which is a doubly impressively long time given the state of medical technology then. After the end of her age, the crown went to her son, Edward VII, to George V, to Edward VIII, who finally breaks up this neat and tidy and somewhat boring line of succession by committing a scandal, marrying a commoner, an American commoner, an American commoner divorcee twice over.
Yes.
Actually, the divorces were a real problem and weren't compatible with the monarch's role as head of state and also the Church of England in the 1930s. Edward abdicated to his brother George VI, who was reluctant to take the crown and then had to oversee World War II.
What's funny though about the whole Wallace Simpson scenario, part of it, I think, was out of a fear that she would end up divorcing him in the future because, like, hey, she's already been divorced twice. The funny thing is, though, they lived a full life together. They were happy together. Now, part of that might be, though, is because Wallace didn't have to experience really the royal family because, well, her husband didn't become king. They got to live a pretty peaceful life by not being the monarchs of a country, right? So perhaps that's one of the reasons why they were able to live such a happy life together and not get divorced. But yeah, it's interesting that happened, that they were what they were afraid of. That couple stayed together just totally fine.
Subsequent breakup of the British Empire, which drained the reluctant king's health, who died at 56, leaving the crown to Elizabeth II in 1952 at the age of 25. 7 years older than Victoria, her great-great-grandmother was on her coronation day, but in early September 2015, Elizabeth became the longest reigning queen in not just British history, but world history. From Elizabeth II, the crown continues on to Charles, the longest heir apparent in British history, to his son William, to his son George. And that is a brief history of the royal family.
That was fucking good. I started piecing it together towards the end, but when we were in that very messy time period, I got lost. But damn, that was really good. And I like the amount of the detail that was present was good. Like, you learned what you needed to learn to understand why this guy became king over this person, right? Which is good. I like that. I like that a lot. So yeah, that was CGP Gray's brief history of the royal family. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. and leave a suggestion down below for what you want to see me react to next. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.